Hey, what's going on, guys? So today I want to talk about Corrosive Projection, which in my mind is the best aura in the entire game. And I don't see people running it that often, especially when you're trying to find people for a group and they don't understand that running Corrosive Projection is going to be better than a damage mod, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just want to talk about why it's good and when to use it, because it's super strong against any enemy that has armor. And the higher level enemies you're dealing with, the stronger it becomes, which is in direct opposition to other damage increasing mods like Steel Charge or Pistol Amp. Oh my god, do I hate Pistol Amp, and I'll talk about that more in a second as well. Personally, I like running Corrosive Projection on everything, even though it doesn't get its maximum value most times in groups just because other players in your group are not running it as well. And on lower level missions, it's easier to get more damage out of a damage increasing mod like Steel Charge. And a lot of times I take it even farther than it probably should go, and I run Corrosive Projection on a frame like Saren that has innate corrosive procs in her kit. And whenever people see my Saren build, they're like, what are you doing, you idiot? Why are you running Corrosive Projection on a corrosive frame? And while I do understand that Saren Spores can remove enemy armor, it takes about 10 seconds to get 99% armor removal with Saren. And if me and my squad are running Corrosive Projection together instead of relying on Saren to strip the armor, that means that the enemies are going to spawn in without armor, allowing us to deal full damage to their health without it being reduced by their armor value. Now, obviously, this value goes up as the levels get higher, but even at lower levels, the damage reduction can be substantial on the tankier units. And personally, for me, I don't like waiting 10 seconds for the armor to be stripped off. Now, obviously, this requires your group to run it as well, and most times it's not going to happen, so it's wishful thinking on my part. But occasionally, when the stars align and I get random people in my squad who also run Corrosive Projection, it feels amazing because you just tear apart the enemies. And the reason Corrosive Projection is so good in Warframe is because of the way effective health scales in the game. Now, health and effective health are two different things. If you're not aware, health is just like the basic health you have on an enemy. So let's say they have like 200 health, that's what their health value is. The effective health is how much damage it takes to actually kill the enemy. So it's effectively how much damage you're going to need to deal to take their health from 100% to 0. And a lot of times that damage is affected heavily by armor. In case you're not aware, the armor formula works like this. It's the enemy's current armor divided by their current armor plus 300. This gives you the damage reduction that the armor is providing to the enemy. To find the enemy's effective health, you just take the enemy's current health and you divide it by 1 minus the number we just got, which is the damage reduction. So on the Corrupted Heavy Gunner here, we have 500 base armor and 700 base health. Now, obviously, these are affected by different damage types differently, and I have a whole nother video covering that I'll link to below. But I'm not going to be talking about damage types here, and I'm also just going to pretend like they don't exist for the purposes of this video. It would just be too much to talk about all of those in addition to armor and effective health. Anyways, back to the Heavy Gunner. So you can see here that we have 500 base armor, which is 500 divided by 500 plus 300, which is 800. This then gives us the basic damage reduction for the armor value we have listed here, which is 62.5%. which is represented here as 0.625. You multiply it by 100 to get the full percentage. But we're going to be using this 0.625 to find the effective health, which we do by taking the base health, which is 700 as you can see here, and then dividing that by 1 minus the number we just got. So that's 1 minus 0.625, which gives us 1,866 effective health. So instead of just dealing 700 damage to the health as it's listed here with the clone flesh, it's actually going to take us 1,866 effective damage to kill this enemy. Now, if the Heavy Gunner didn't have armor, then it would only be 700 damage, which means that by removing the armor from the enemy, we effectively deal 1,166 damage to the Heavy Gunner. Now, I am reaching here a bit comparing the armor removal to damage, but I do want to make that comparison in your head just to make sure you understand that removing armor is basically giving you extra damage, which remember is what Corrosive Projection does. So think about Corrosive Projection as giving you extra damage against armored targets, which to help me illustrate, I've created a little graph here. Now, if you're not aware of what an exponential graph looks like, this is what it looks like. It just keeps going up and up and up and up into infinity. So if I continued this farther on with higher level enemies, the chart would just continue to gain height. Here I have a chart of Corrupted Heavy Gunner health from level 0 to 200. The purple section here is the overall unmodified effective health of the Heavy Gunner. So this is without any Corrosive Projections or anything. As you can see, the effective health of the Heavy Gunner at level 200 is 33 million. Now, each of these sections represents one Corrosive Projection. So the first purple is no corrosive projection. The blue is with running 1 corrosive projection, which reduces the effective health to 23 million. So we're effectively gaining 10 million damage by removing 30% of the heavy gunner's armor. Obviously, this is a level 200 enemy that you won't run into very often, but I thought that it was a good illustration of how this works. If we were to then run 2 corrosive projections, it would result in a 13 million effective health enemy. So again, by running an extra corrosive projection, so this is with 2 people in the squad, we've gained 20 million damage versus a heavy gunner at level 200. And then finally, with the 3rd corrosive projection in the squad, the effective health is reduced again to 3.6 million. So just to quickly recap, by running 3 auras, we've effectively gained 30 million damage versus this enemy. And that's before we even touch it. Now I have one more bar down at the very bottom here. I don't know if you can see it, but that's the health value. So if the enemy didn't have any armor, it would only have 387,000 health, which sounds like a lot, but compared to the 33 million effective health it just had, having 300,000 health is almost nothing. The corrosive projection benefit on the heavy gunner is going to be exacerbated because it has the highest base armor in the game. But I also wanted to show an example of something that has low base armor, which in this case is going to be the corrupted butcher. So we're going to keep it in the corrupted family. And the corrupted butcher starts with 5 base armor compared to the 500 base armor that the gunner has. So starting out, the butcher has 100 times less armor, which means that it's going to gain less effective health with each level due to the lower base armor. So as you can see here, it starts out at about 100 base effective health, and it ends up at a little over 100,000 effective health. And you can see here that the effect for corrosive projection is diminished on the butcher, which is again because it has less overall armor. So the top unmodified effective health is going to be 100,000, and then the base health, which is going to be what it is before the armor's applied, is going to be about 60,000. So we're effectively gaining about 40,000 increased damage by running corrosive projections here. And I wanted to show this example just to talk about why running corrosive projection is better than running something else. Because on the lower level targets or the targets that have less base armor, it's not going to be as beneficial. However, that doesn't mean that it's not beneficial to run. Think about it like gaining damage, right? Like I talked about earlier. So with the butcher at level 200, we're gaining about 15,000 damage per corrosive projection, which again gets better as you get higher in level. But as you can see here on the chart, the lower the level the butcher is, the less of a difference the corrosive projection will make. So at level 50, the health's going to be about 4,000, and then with all the armor, it's still going to be about 4,000. But if you're looking at something like the heavy gunner at level 50, it's going to be about 19,000 base health with 162,000 effective health. Now I know on the chart it doesn't look like a lot, but you are essentially gaining over 100,000 effective damage against the heavy gunner. So it's still good against the heavier units, even though it's less good against the lighter units, which hopefully you should be killing anyways. I do understand looking at the lower level units, corrosive projection doesn't seem as appealing because you're not gaining tens of millions of effective damage versus the enemies. But that doesn't mean that it's not good still. The last example I threw together here is a corrupted Lancer. So again, we're going from level 0 to 200, and I'm showing the effective health. I chose the corrupted Lancer because it has 200 base armor, which is kind of in the middle of the 5 and the 500. So hopefully this will at least show you what happens with a middling armor value. The Lancer level 200 is going to have about 1 million effective health. And each corrosive projection is going to give us more value than the butcher, with roughly 200,000 per corrosive, with running 4 or enough to strip 100% of your enemy's armor at nearly 1 million total effective health damage, with the level 50 Lancers having about 10,000 effective health and 2,000 base health, which still means that each corrosive projection removes about 2,000 effective health. And if you're curious, I did put all these together to show you what each enemy looks like at level 200, and I'll give you one guess what the big purple one is. Obviously, the higher the armor value is at base, the higher the effective health is going to be, and it's super exacerbated with the heavy gunner. Anyways, I hope that at least informed you on how corrosive projection works and why it's good versus high armored enemies. Now I want to talk about running a damage aura instead of corrosive projection, because I think a lot of times most people are just running a damage aura or an energy aura. Energy auras are a little different and they provide different utility, so I'm not going to compare them directly to corrosive projection. And obviously, guys, corrosive projection is not going to be the best in every single scenario, because there's enemies like Corpus that don't even have armor most times, or enemies like Infested that only have armor on specific units, or if they get buffed by another Infested. But now I want to compare the damage I get from corrosive projection versus the damage I get from Pistol Lamp. And I'm going to do that by using the Catch Moon. I do have a ribbon on my Catch Moon, guys, but we don't really care about that so much right now. I'm just going to be focusing on the overall damage numbers, so don't worry too much about the Riven. So you can see on the left hand side here that I have a fully modded catch boon that's built for radiation damage, and I'm at about 14,000 radiation with 2,000 impact. So with this build is basically fully kitted out, let's find out how much damage the Pistol Lamp aura gives us. If I were to just run the Pistol Lamp aura with this current build, it would give me a grand total of 928 extra damage. If everybody on my team was running the Pistol Lamp aura, so we had 4, just like having 4 Corrosive Projections, the total damage that this would give me is 3,712. So by running 4 of the same aura here with the Pistol Lamp, you get about 4,000 damage, whereas running the Corrosive Projection aura, you can get varying damage amounts depending on the enemy. But the damage you gain will scale with level, and it'll also be better against harder enemies. You know, most times the butchers are never going to be your problem. You're mostly dealing with like the heavy gunners or the tankier units that are going to stop you from progressing through the current mission. And you can extrapolate this to any other increased damage aura, because remember, the increased damage auras are only base damage, so they're going to be additive with things like Hornet Strike here, Magnum Force, Serration, Pressure Point and Melee. All of those auras are additive with those mods. The Pistol Lamp aura is not giving you a 1.27 times multiplier to all of your pistol damage, which is why it basically just sucks. You know, I'd rather run something like Steel Charge instead of the pistol aura, because it's at least going to give me extra melee damage, and it's also going to give me extra capacity. But most times, just running a Corrosive Projection and foregoing an extra mod on your frame if you don't have the dash polarity is going to be best. But considering that all the good auras are dash polarities like Corrosive Projection, Enemy Radar, Energy Siphon, and Shield Disruption, most times you're probably going to want a dash polarity on your frame. And if you're ever wondering what aura should I use, it's almost always going to be Corrosive Projection. But anyways guys, I hope this video at least taught you when to use Corrosive Projection and why it's good. Because it's very important to understand why it's good, because then that will inform your decisions on when to use it. And if this video has taught you anything, I hope that it's running it with a squad is super strong, especially in higher level missions like arbitrations. Because having one person not running Corrosive Projection, or if someone's not running Coaction Drift with their Corrosive Projection to get the 100% strip, you can gain literally millions of effective health on enemies. If you have any questions about anything I covered here, please leave a comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you. But that's going to do it for me guys. Hope you're all having a good one, and I'll see you later.